All right, it's time to start messing with events and learning how we can use tools to manipulate them and move them around the timeline. So let's take an overview of our tools. First of all, we've got this bracket here. This bracket is actually a multi-tool that's fairly new to Studio One, which combines the arrow tool and the range selection tool. So the arrow tool lets us select things, and the range selection tool lets us select a range within an event as opposed to selecting the whole event. And the multi-tool basically combines them into one. Next to this tool, we have the split tool. This is going to allow us to make cuts like a knife in our events and split them into multiple pieces. Next to that, we've got the eraser tool where we can go in and just delete portions that we've split, just deleting single events on a track. Next to that, we've got a paint tool, which basically can allow us to create new events, both in our audio tracks and also in instrument or MIDI tracks, which we haven't gotten to yet. And then next to that is the mute tool, pretty self-explanatory. Click it and it mutes it. So instead of using the mute here, which will mute the whole track, this is just going to mute portions of the track, whatever we decide on. Beside that is the audio bend tool, which is really cool, but too much to get into right now. Basically, it allows us to shrink or expand and warp our audio, changing the timing of it, which is, yeah, pretty awesome. So next to that, we've got this lonely little guy called the listen tool. I can't say I've ever used this tool or have any interest in using it now. This is what it does. So wherever I click, it lets me preview that portion. I really have no need to do this. What I do is just use the multi-tool, select somewhere along the ruler, push play, check it out. If I need to listen to something individually, I just solo it. It's easier for me than switching tools back and forth all the time there. The last thing to know about these tools is underneath the arrow tool, we have this smaller arrow, which allows us to choose an alternative tool. So for instance, if I switch it to the split tool, I can push the command key, which is control on Windows, and it will put me into a secondary tool. So if I'm using two tools frequently, I can just switch back and forth between them with a single button press. In fact, all the tools are available to us with a single button press. It's just that the other buttons will switch to them permanently. And the buttons are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Each number on the top of your keyboard will select a new tool for you, and that's a quick way to jump between tools when you need to work with them. The better you get at your keyboard shortcuts, the faster you're going to be able to work. So we're going to talk about keyboard shortcuts more in depth in a future video, but if you ever need to know what a shortcut is, you can just hover over that function or button in Studio One, and like here it says split tool 3. If I push 3, I get the split tool. So now let's talk about how we can use these to work with our events. First of all, the multi-tool. Normally, we can, using the arrow tool, click an event and it will select it. Once it's selected, we can do something like move it around, move it to new tracks, whatever we want to do. And to revert back to how it was before, we can use undo. So undo is basically your best friend. It's good to get super familiar with it. How it works is by pushing Command Z, that's Control Z on PC, and we can step backwards in time, each step we've taken. To move forward, we push Command Shift Z, and that moves us forward in time. So these two are really important to get under your fingers. You're going to use them all the time. Yeah, they're just second nature to me. Whenever we're trying to try something new, we might take a whole bunch of steps in a certain direction and try out an idea and it doesn't work, so we revert by using undo. Now, if we've messed up the song beyond recognition and we don't want to undo, we just want to go back to how it was originally, there's a cool feature for that called revert. So if we go up to File and push Revert, it'll ask us, are you sure you want to revert all changes? Yes. And here we are back at the original session, totally as it was when we downloaded it. So now, to get the other functions of the multi-tool, we have to increase the size of our tracks, because the size of the tracks will limit what functions we can perform on the events. The easiest way to do that is just to come over to the track on the bottom of it and drag that down, and that will change the size of the track. But if we wanted to change the size of all tracks at once, we can come to the bottom of the tracks list, and where it says small down here, we can choose a size, such as tiny or large. For our purposes right now, let's go medium, because medium is going to give us enough resolution in our track height to get all the features of our multi-tool. So the first feature we just looked at, which is moving clips, we get the arrow tool, and we get that by being on the bottom half of any event, like this. When we move above the middle point on the event, it switches to this plus sign, which is actually the range selection tool. So now we've got these two tools in one. Range is above 50% of the event, and arrow is below. When we're in the range tool on the top half of the event, we can double click and it functions just like the split tool. I've actually created new portions of the original event in here that I could either drag around or delete, which is kind of the next function, which I just press delete on my keyboard, and I'm deleting those sections. So I can step back. That delete function kind of replaces the need to use the eraser tool up here. So just pressing delete is kind of a faster way to go. Select the event, press delete, and it's gone. The next thing we can do with the multi-tool is trim. So we can take any event, come to the edge of it, front or back edge, and we get this icon, which we can click and drag and change the start point of that clip, of that event, just like this. So this is actually getting rid of everything that comes before it. So if I solo this now, and I start from here, now if I pull it back and start from there, so I've changed how long the event is. So if I'm say down on my bass track and I don't like these last few notes, I could just grab the end, pull it back, and I've gotten rid of them just like that. So let's solo this, and we'll take the solo off of the drums. And there used to be notes here, now there's not. So if I push Command Z and play that again. So this works at the front of clips or the back of clips. This is how you determine how long the clip is. If you've recorded too much or you need more space in the clip, you can get it just by using this trimming function. The next thing to know is fading. So let's take this bass clip again. I'm going to trim it right up to the point where it starts. Let's hear that. Now if I come to the edge of the clip, I see this little triangle in the top corner. Grab it, pull, and look what happens. Now if we listen to this, so what's happened is that the volume of the clip has now started at 0 and faded in slowly. And I can do this at the end of the clip as well to fade out. Grab the triangle and pull back, and we listen to that. And it fades out as it goes. This is really useful for making smooth transitions when new sounds enter the song, or you want them to fade out and blend into another sound. So really easy to create fades. The last thing to know about them is that you can grab this little handle in the center of the fade, and it will allow you to change the shape of the fade from exponential fades, which basically means a very slow starting and then ramps up really fast, to a logarithmic fade, which is very fast start and then a slow resolution. And that would be the opposite when you go to a fade out. So a fade out exponential is a fast beginning and a slow end, and then the opposite for a logarithmic fade out. So let's pull these fades back to the edge. I then wanted to talk about copying and pasting. So this is duplicating sections or duplicating events. So say I have this ambient Vox track right here, which sounds like this. And let's say I only wanted the first bar of this, and I wanted that bar to repeat. What I could do is trim the event back to only being the first bar, have it selected. Now I can right-click, go copy, put my playhead where I want it to go, right-click, and push paste, and it appears there. Now, another way that's even simpler to do that is to click the event and push Command-C or Control-C, which is the shortcut for copy, put my playhead where I want, and push Command-V or Control-V, and it will paste it. So that's the same function but using key commands. So you can see key commands are even faster than using the mouse. And even faster still is if I hold the Alt key on Windows or the Option key on Mac, And then I click and hold the event and drag. I get this plus sign, and now I'm copying the event in one go. Now there's no copy and paste, it's just straight duplicating just by dragging the event while holding Option or the Alt key, and I can copy as many as I want out just like that. So copying and pasting or duplicating is very useful, using it all the time. Say we've created a section and we want the whole section to go once more before it ends. I would just select all those clips, hold Option, click and drag, pull it over, and I would get a whole duplicate of that section or that part or that event or whatever it is that we're looking for. So we can take the work we've done and multiply it really quickly just by copying events out like that. I could even grab this whole section, hold Option, and copy that whole thing over. So I don't have to do each one individually. So copy and paste or duplicate, super useful, really important to get to know. The last thing I'm going to talk about right now is kind of navigating the timeline, and this is by zooming and scrolling. So zooming happens by using the W and E keys. So here's W, that zooms me out horizontally, and E zooms me in. Now I'm going to zoom out again. And if I hold Shift and push W, I zoom out vertically. Holding Shift and push E, zoom in vertically. So that's the basics of zooming. The next thing to know is how to scroll around the session. Now, if you've got a trackpad like on a laptop, you can just swipe your fingers around and it easily pulls you up and down, side to side. But if you're using a mouse, and it has a scroll wheel, you can use the scroll wheel to go up and down, but going side to side seems more difficult. But there's actually a shortcut. If you hold Shift and use your mouse wheel, you'll move side to side, or a crazy amount side to side when your computer goes crazy like mine. Simple method. So now we have one device, the scroll wheel, to go up and down. Holding Shift and scrolling goes horizontally. So that's zooming and scrolling, which will get you around the song page here in the timeline, and getting familiar with all the tools about how to manipulate clips, copy them, move them, fade them, delete them, all that jazz. So in the next video, we'll take a look at looping and time stretching. I'll see you there.